Damien's going to talk about the delays.
That's on now, Greg. I'm just going to run to the toilet.
Where do you want us to do that? Here or here?
Somewhere unimpeded. Maybe in that corner down there. No one's. Oh, that table here. What about this? There you go. What's that? Hey? Don't know where else you'll get to see all four. It's just people can't sit there.
End of that table.
I reckon this person will have to move.
Move the table around a bit more. Do you want to move the table around?
They'll have to move.
As long as these people sit down.
That would work.
Fine.
Just move that chair. No, nothing important. Nothing valuable.
We've already got a bunch of questions, so
Sorry?
this gentleman wants to talk about budget, but we already got a bunch of questions.
Oh, well, at this time of night, we're not anyway. This is live. We just need one issue.
Yeah, no. I'll give you this one. Oh, that's right. Sorry, I think question. Yeah, no, sorry. May I have a number? No, questions now. Yeah, because we want to
What's the subject? Because we might already have somebody asking about.
well, there are a couple of possibilities. But they spread out between
Yes, there were a lot of different subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. Next to
Thanks very much.
Behind that chair. Behind that chair. I'm blow away. The curtain's moving all the time. That one? No, I don't have the street lady. You know who that lady is that's sitting up there now? Feeling old.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Candidates Forum and our thanks to Port City Bowling Club. I'm Greg Franks, President of the Hastings Residents Association. We're running the forum tonight. The forum is being broadcast live on YouTube and can also be viewed later on YouTube under the name Meet the Candidates Port Macquarie 2023. If you want to ask a question, please write it down and take a number. Paper to write on, and the numbers are available up here. If you haven't taken one already, just come down and see them here at the front desk. Now, then when we call your number, come down to the microphone or to the stand where I am, and you can put your question to the candidates. If you would prefer I asked it for you, just have it written out and give it to me when we call your number and I'll ask it for you. Now, first I have to give apologies for Leslie Williams. She's unable to attend tonight. She's very ill. Now, our moderator tonight is GP Dr. Mert Ahmed, who will explain the rules and introduce the candidates. Mert.
Good stuff. Hello, how you going? Good evening. Thank you for attending today, and thank you to our candidates for attending. So I'm just going to quickly have a quick brief through the rules and just how it works this evening, and then we can get cracking into the questions. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce the candidates. So we've got Mayor Peter Pinson for the Nationals. We've got Pete McQuick. And then we've got Keith McWilliam for Labour, Stuart Watson for the Greens, and then we have Sylvia Bogorovich for the Informed Medical Options Party. So just a quick whip through the rules for this evening. To start with, we're going to have 3 minutes introduction from each candidate. Okay, we'll call them up and introduce themselves one by one. All the orders tonight of questions which you're going to ask is all randomised, so they're going to be answering in random. There's nothing pre-planned. Who gets to answer first. And then when we take questions, there's just going to be 1 minute for each question. So if we can keep the questions really concise and to the point, they'll have a chance of answering that question within 1 minute. That'll be great. And I'm just going to organise, and then at the end, there's going to be 2 minutes for them all to sum up, closing remarks, and then we'll hopefully finish by around 8 o'clock if we can. So I'm just going to start by inviting the speakers up to give their opening remarks. So I'll just start with Peter Pensel.
Thank you. It's good to know there's a doctor in the house. We might need one tonight. So the great philosophers, Aristotle termed the phrase that the personal is the political. And to put this in simple terms is that the person is embedded in the decision of politics. And in a YouGov survey taken in 2018, just before the federal election, 81% of Australians all agreed that political candidates should focus on local issues and local communities. So what exactly are local issues? Health, education, policing, housing, roads, infrastructure, and the unnecessary destruction of an iconic break wall, I would say. I think since the survey 4 years ago, what would have changed is the amount of people who think politicians should be representing them with their local issues and livability has risen higher to that 81% 4 years ago. All politics is local and the personal is political. If you know anything about me, you know I lead with my heart. I fight for what I believe is right, and I represent you to the best of my ability and have done so as your mayor for the last 6 years. I'm taking this election head on as the Nationals candidate for the seat of Port Macquarie to fight for what is right and what we deserve in our growing regional area. I'm not here before you tonight to sell you on any political party or any political propaganda. I'm here tonight to only offer you myself as a leader who has demonstrated that I've put in the hard yards. I've stayed with you when the going gets tough, and I've fought hard on your behalf for what the community not only expects but deserves. I understand all politics is local, and I stand before you as a choice for a Member of Parliament who will not be a bureaucrat, a choice for a member who won't tell you what you will have, but instead will work hard for what you want, and a choice for a member who will take your views, your concerns and your wishes straight into the New South Wales Parliament. I know how important this election is. It's important for our region, especially in these uncertain times. I thank you all for coming here tonight because I know you're here because you care about the local issues which affect us all as a local, regional, growing community. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks everyone for coming along tonight. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that tonight we stand in Biripi country, and I acknowledge the past, present and future leaders from First Nations. A little bit about myself and a lot about the Greens policies. I've lived all my adult life in this beautiful region. I'm standing as a Greens candidate for Port Macquarie. I'm ready to serve the people, free of any influence from big corporations. About me, I'm a bit of a doer. You know, I was on the formation committee of 2A FM. I'm the chairperson of Energy Forever. I'm a formation member of Port Macquarie Hastings Sustainability Network. I was a long-term member of the Sustainable Working Group in Council till it was disbanded. I'm a business owner. I'm an electric vehicle nut. I built my own electric vehicle 10 years ago, and I'm committed to being a doer for you in our community. And I'm a little bit emotional too, you know, I've changed my talk. These guys will be pleased. I'm a little bit scared. What am I scared about? I'm scared about the Liberal National Coalition not doing anything about our housing crisis. They've had 12 years to address it. There's people living in cars. There's people who can't afford rent. 25% of the population here rent houses, and there's a rental crisis. There's a healthcare crisis. I've met with the nurses recently, and I was shocked, you know. 2019, we had the mental health unit at our hospital open, and it's only 50% staffed. 50% staff. It's 2023. We've got a mental health crisis. We've got an education crisis. At Port High School, you can't get teachers for classes. 4 or 5 classes a week, they can't get casual teachers. So we have a biodiversity crisis. We're looking at losing our iconic koala to extinction by 2050. The Greens have started the talk on the Great Koala National Park. Labor have taken it on. Let's see what the Liberal Nationals do about it. So I'm scared, okay? I've really got to admit this. But I'm optimistic. We've got the solutions. We've got science-based solutions that can attack these problems. We've got the policies. We don't have many core flutes, but we've got a lot more policies, I tell you. I'm optimistic that we've got the solutions, the science-based solutions, and we've got strong, clear, stated policies on our website. You have to look at them. So I'm scared, I'm optimistic, and I'm proud. I'm proud to be a member of a party that doesn't take donations from fossil fuel companies, from other large corporations, or from gambling industry. A party that's always cared for the environment and social equality. As the member for Port Macquarie, I would act in your best interests. Your vote's powerful. Vote one Greens. Thank you. So, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sylvia Magorovich. I'm not only new to the meeting tonight, having only found out about it an hour ago because I am a late nominee for your wonderful area, but I'm new to the area. I only came down from Cairns, North Queensland, the end of last year. And I'm running in this electorate because I believe that I can be a voice for choice. Respectfully, I don't believe that the Nationals, Labor, Liberals, or the Greens actually do represent people, regardless of what they may say. I have done a little bit of due diligence and I found out a few areas which I believe that the people in this electorate need to have addressed, or at least give voice to. Some of which have already been mentioned tonight, the break wall. Now, as I understand it, there has been an independent review study done, and it has suggested that the best option to go with is repair. Right? That's what it says. It's very clear. Now, that was community-led, so I think there's a lot of strength to that. On the other side, you've got the state government saying that it needs to be completely reconstructed, 5 mature trees dug up, this taken out, that taken out, everything shut down. And I'm going to ask, why? I mean, I know. Do you know? It's for the money, isn't it? The tenders, the quotes, whoever's getting money on the side to make that go through. So if I was the state, if I became your elected representative, then that's the first thing I'd do is give the green lights to repair the break wall. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Another thing I found out about Port Macquarie Hastings region is that you have fluoridated water. Now, it is a scientific fact. It is a scientific fact that fluoride is a neurotoxin. It's a neurotoxin that we're told to drink up, drink up, drink up. It's a fact. You can shake your head. It is. Google fluoride, neurotoxin. It is. That causes our children to have developmental delays. Okay, it affects their growing brains. So that's one of the first things I would address. Unfortunately, it's a council issue. So someone in my position would have to put pressure on the council about that, which I would do. I am not a shy person. I'm not scared. I'm here because I don't trust the people who are in our government. And I don't want to call myself a politician because I don't want to play games or play politics. I want to represent the people. I want to listen to what people want to say. And coming in here with fresh eyes and fresh ears, I think I can do that. Thank you. The third thing that I've heard is a big issue down here is vaccine mandates. That there are still businesses in this area that are refusing people to work or come into the building because they are not injected with a medical product. Now that is fundamentally something that I'm against. I decided not to take the experimental mRNA technology therapy, and I believe that that is my right to do so. And I don't believe that I should be discriminated against for that in any such way. Social equality, I mean, I was actually part of an expose last year because the Greens in Queensland, who are for social equality, time's up. I would also prioritise road upgrades and parking and protect koala habitat.
Hi folks, my name is Keith McMullen. I was born here on Birrapai land, which I acknowledge. I also acknowledge our elders, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to pass on a personal thanks to Leslie, who's not here tonight, for the continual amount of community grants that we have had that our town and southern region have benefited from. And I'm sure that whoever wins this coming election, those community grants will continue. However, I cannot congratulate the Liberal National Party coalition government. I think they have failed the state. Too many of our essential services are in strife. Our teachers, nurses are striking. When they strike, it's a sure sign that something is wrong. We are seeing unprecedented dissatisfaction with too many areas of our public sector. And this is affecting us here in Port Macquarie. All you have to do is talk to Mark, the union representative here from the nurses and midwives at the local hospital. You'll find out 99 full-time positions cannot be filled, very low morale, overstaffed, run off their feet. And it's the same story with our teachers in our public school. They are beside themselves with similar pressures. Labor recognises this, and we have some clear policies that are found on the internet, newsouthwaleslabour.org.au campaign, if you want to look them up, and they're following where they're addressing and have clear policies on health, education, manufacturing, housing, which was highlighted tonight in a fellow candidate's speech, another local crisis, gambling reform, and of course koalas, local management of our environment and our quality of life. All of those are big issues that affect the state, but they are outworked here in a local, very practical way. And that is very important. It's really important that we have a clear, working, transparent relationship between our state member and our council, where everything is on the board so that all correspondence, all plans between all levels of government can be clearly outworked to the benefit of the town and our southern regions. I do urge you to give some consideration to what I've said and vote Labor. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to take some questions now. Who had question 1?
Hi, thanks for that introduction, Keith. I wasn't going to mention that I am the branch president of the Port Macquarie Based Hospital, Nurses and Midwives Association. Now, I worked there for 19 years and I've never seen a hospital in the condition it's in at the moment. A lot of people don't realise how bad it is until you actually need it. We are tired, we are exhausted, we are doing copious amounts of overtime, not that we want it, we would rather not do it. Now my issue, I've got 5 issues, but I'm told I've only got to do 1. So my main concern is the mental health unit at Port Macquarie Based Hospital was opened by the Honourable Leslie Williams on the 16th of the 8th, 2019, with 20 beds. Only 12 have been opened. The remaining 8 are closed. They are not funded. This is what they do. They build these beautiful new hospitals and beautiful new wards, but what they don't tell you is it's like for like. So if they build a 20-bed maternity ward, at the moment there's 12. So they'll move that 12 beds over, they'll fund it for 12. The remaining beds will not be funded. They will not be open. That's what they don't tell you. So they're telling you mistruths. Now, as I said, the 8 remaining beds are closed. They're not open. They're locked. The ward's there, ready to go. We don't have the staff because they don't have the funding. At the moment, patients are held up. So patients have to be shipped to Coffs Harbour and Newcastle, taken away from their support base, their family. What are the plans to open the 8 remaining beds at Port Macquarie Base Hospital so that we don't cause a bed block in ED and we're not moving these vulnerable patients into another area? It's absolutely atrocious.
I'm happy to answer that, but are we not going? Yeah, are we not going? Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. Hey, Mark. How you going? Let's be transparent, shall we?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Mark and I had a meeting, and I told you I was prepared to stand shoulder to shoulder with the nurses, didn't I? I did. I haven't been given that opportunity, sadly, have I?
No, you haven't.
I haven't been given that opportunity. And as a member as a member of this community and a possible member of Port Macquarie electorate, I need the opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, Mark, and your nurses, because I believe what you've told me. I do. I'm not here to toe a party line. I'm here to represent this community. And I told you that, didn't I? Thank you. Thank you for your transparency. Because at the end of the day, all healthcare matters, not just mental health, all healthcare. But the fact that we have such a growing region who are suffering some of the most complex social issues, creating mental stress for our community breaks my heart. Please, Mark, give me the opportunity as a possible member for Port Macquarie to have the opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with you and the nurses. Thank you.
Australia is in the grip of a mental health epidemic. I'm sure it's here, there, everywhere at the moment. Part of our party's policies is not just to do band-aid solutions, Mark. Sorry, I do think that you would need the funding. I can't say, oh, I'm going to. What I would say to you is, why do they need those beds? Why are they mental health issues? Is it a drug problem? Is it, stuff from lockdowns, everything? We need to know why these people need mental health issues. It's not enough just to put them in a bed, drug them up, and then, oh, you're good enough now, go. Suicides are up. That's sad. Do you want suicides to continue? I don't. I want people to live healthy, happy lives where they feel, valuable as part of the community. One of the things I've found in a remote area is when there's not opportunity for children, that's when they go down the drug and alcohol route. And everybody's physiology is different. So sometimes people can, do this drug and they're fine. Other times people have a mental breakdown or end up schizophrenic. Okay, it's sad, and we need to deal with the root problem. I'm not into band-aid solutions.
Labor has, when you're in opposition, you have to do your costings before you can stand before the public and make any sort of promise or say what your policies are. We've identified 4 areas across the state that need attention, and mental health is one of them, and it is one that we're very concerned about and are very happy to invest in.
Great. I'll read straight from our policies, and I'll also talk directly to Mark. We've met with Mark. We met with Amanda Conn, who is our health representative, a doctor. Our health policies are driven by science-based study. A possible reason that you haven't met with the Liberal National Party is that the decade of Liberal National government and the global pandemic has left our health departments in crisis, our health system in crisis. Wait times at emergency departments and ambulances have exploded. The Liberal National Party is in charge of this. So I've met with the Teachers Federation, I've met with the police, and they're not interested in talking anymore. They've had 12 years to solve the problem. The Greens have already introduced a bill in the New South Wales Parliament to establish nurse-to-patient ratios and push the government to give a bonus to nurses. With your vote, you can put the Greens in the balance of power where we can work to fix our healthcare system and provide free healthcare when and where it's needed. The Greens would rescue our public health system. Thank you.
I Hi, I'm Robin Sparks, and I live out in Annabella, past the hospital roundabout. Now, I've heard for 15 years, or the BFCs, about what's going to happen to the roundabout. Does it have to take a person to die to get the ambulances up there? I've heard it all before, and it's about time there's not that you only work for a party, but you work for the people. And you keep releasing all this land out there, you knock all the trees down, but you don't fix the problem up. I don't understand how come the council can let all the area keep building up and you're not fixing the problem. And thank you very much for acknowledging your country. Thank you. What are they going to do about the roundabout?
What are they going to do about it?
It's roundabout.
It's roundabout.
Yeah, it's a big, I'll read again from our great policies. They're all there on the website, but development without the infrastructure to support the development is just an anachronism. We've really got to work better at our development, get the infrastructure in before we have the development. We've got a framework for principles to save our coast from rampant development. We're looking to the state government to stop zombie DAs launching huge developments that were approved tens or 15s of years ago. It's time for free public transport. We've really got to look at the population problem in Port Macquarie. In my lifetime here, I've seen the population double, okay? And we don't have the infrastructure to support it. Small buses, free public transport would get cars off the road. Let's get creative. Let's talk to the town planners. Dr. Newman in Western Australia has been to Port Macquarie and looked at what free small public transport buses like they run in Germany, like they run in other cities, would cut down the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to actually agree with Stuart there about the buses. It's essential, and whoever gets in to be the state member, I hope that is one of the first things they tackle. It is really important. It's also a great equaliser, because when people are below, low on the socioeconomic scale, they need to be able to get, if they want to get a job, they need to be able to get there. They don't have a car, they can't, if they can buy a car, they can't pay rates, petrol, all of that. Free buses would really help with that. To do with the roads, yes, they absolutely need to be upgraded. Roundabouts are great up to a certain point, but when it gets too much traffic, they have to be upgraded, and there's just no way around it. So I would immediately find some funding for that, because I think it's essential.
There are funding for it. Why isn't it being done? Bureaucracy.
Thanks so much, Robin. 10 years on council, but on the other side of the chamber, sitting in there, and you understand that road is a state government road. So I'm going to park council to the side, because the Oxley Highway is owned by the state government. I personally took the Minister for Regional Transport, Sam Farraway MLC, out to the Oxley Highway to Wrights Road roundabout, and I said, we have one of the biggest assets this community can own next to its airport, which is a hospital. And we are not letting our workers, after they're fatigued and they're overworked, underpaid, stressed out, to be able to go home. We've got a gridlock with our university there. We've got a private school out there. We've got the biggest draw card for sausages and hardware you've ever seen, Bunnings. And we are gridlocked there. What am I going to do as your state member? Well, I've already had the conversation. I'm going to make sure that those designs are paid for, not concept designs, detailed designs are paid for, and then we crack on with the construction. The Transport for New South Wales, and this is really important, Transport for New South Wales in a briefing to council said, we will not see infrastructure there for 5 years. I said, we haven't got long enough.
Being a representative of a possible new incoming government, You'll be pleased to know that we plan to double the funding for regional roads. The local branch of the Labor Party here just today, coincidentally, formulated a motion on this very issue that we would be putting to the possible, probable, hopeful new government for the state. That this is an area too, an example too, I think, where there has to be clear transparency and a good working relationship between the state member and the council, so that these issues can just go straight ahead and be attended and fixed as soon as possible.
Who had question 3? And if the candidates could just stand up when you answer the question, please.
Tony Williams. With respect to the I'm Tony Williams from Port Macquarie. I pay respect to the verified people on whose land we live. We've all seen and experienced firsthand the impact of climate change on our lives and our country and countries overseas. Concerted and effective action on climate change is a very pressing issue for many in the electorate. Could you outline how you would approach this issue of climate change at our local and state level if you are elected as our member?
Thank you, Tony. The health of the environment is crucial. One of the major things we have to look at with environment health is industrial pollution, I believe. Our policies are very clear. We want to encourage investment in clean, economical, efficient, and environmentally sound energy production in Australia. We want to offer information on regenerative sorry, I can't get it out of my mouth. And phasing out, and I might get booed for this, hazardous substances and practices that are negatively impacting upon the health of our environment and people. This is a coastal region, so whatever is put on the land is going to eventually run into the water, and it might be chemicals, it might be sewage, whatever it is. We don't want it in our nice clean water, do we? No. So number one is get the pollutants out. That's going to be a massive thing towards cleaning things up, which is what we aim to do.
Thanks. I'd like to repeat, I'm standing due to the urgent need for real action on climate change, an area of major policy failure by successive governments. I acknowledge the members of Climate Change Australia who are here tonight. I've been a standing member of Climate Change Australia. I believe in the science. I'm a renewable energy consultant. Firm renewable energy is now the cheapest power source, and we've got all the technology to do it. Renewable energy employs about 400 people in Port Macquarie. Jamie's here, he's a National Party member. I acknowledge the work he's done. We need to dedicate ourselves to the science, acknowledge the science. Climate change is not a brand. Climate change is real. The science is real, it's irrefutable, and without a plan to phase out coal and gas, all the targets that we've got at the moment are just small talk. The New South Wales State Government has got one of the best targets in Australia, and it's aspirational. Unless they phase out new coal and new gas, unless we look at doing plantation timber rather than native forest logging, it's all small talk. We need real targets and real action. Thank you.
New South Wales Labor will create a state-owned clean energy commission. We want the aim of that is to work again with federal government, state government, local government on all the opportunities that are coming for our business, for our industry as we move towards renewables because of climate change. It's not really a matter, I believe, of whether you believe it or not. It's a matter of moving with the momentum that's shifting in industry, and also it's important that we move in this direction, if for nothing else, than to have good and less pollution so that we can keep clean our beautiful environment of our town and region that we love.
Okay, this is what it looks like to be the black sheep of the family. China. Let's have a look. Let's get real about climate change and CO2 emissions, shall we? Because this is where I come from. Reality. China, by country, is the biggest polluter of the world at 29.18%. The US of A, 14.2%. India, you'd think they were dirtier in the world than the USA, but no, 7.9%, and Russia 4.65%. So where does Australia fit in this? Less than 1% of the emissions of the world. Yet here we are in Australia. We want to tax our people. A federal government poll suggests that people only want to spend up to $500 each to solve the problems of our climate in this world. After that, they're not interested. I wonder why. Because they're sending kids to school, they're trying to buy the groceries in the shops, and today was the 10th consecutive rate rise that our people are going to feel. Climate change, as far as the CO2 emissions, we are not the polluters of the world.
Question 4. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Mary Doss. I'm a...
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, okay then. Now, this is a question that I have to all the candidates. It's a shame Leslie is not here because it's a specific question I wanted to ask her about social housing, but I will ask you, Peter, as you are going to be in that government if elected. We all know that social housing is crumbling. The dire state of affairs has a lot to do with the increasing privatisation of the sector. We also know that social housing stock is low, with the current government preferring to sell off land than maintain livable homes for our most needy. Can each candidate please outline how they plan to improve the conditions and boost the stock of social housing should their party be elected or either be on the bench, whatever. So thank you, and my little postscript is to this. The social housing that was released, I think it was probably about 6 weeks ago up at Gore Street. There is only 2 of those out of those 16 social housing units occupied, and I feel the red tape of this government has caused people to not be able to get housing straight away is disgraceful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and straight from our run sheet. We will return planning powers to local councils to abolish the failed local and regional planning panels and ensure that all land use rezoning decisions are made by councils and communities. We will make housing affordable by requiring big property developers to include at least 30% ongoing affordable housing in all new private residential developments. We'll ban the sale of public housing and public land that can be used for public housing, and we will legislate a requirement that at least 10% of all dwellings in New South Wales must be public and not-for-profit social housing. Fund and enable local councils to meet affordable housing targets and create more affordable homes. Supporting not-for-profit community housing initiatives, including shared equity and cooperative housing models. Apply a 5% empty homes levy with some exemptions for homes left empty over 6 months, with the funds going towards creating more public, social and affordable housing. We've got the policies, we've thought about it, we can do it. Thank you.
Okay, really quickly, what stops affordable housing? Well, we've just seen today a rate increase for those with houses that are now probably not affordable. But let's talk about people trying to get into the market. Probably impossible, and even into rental properties. I'm talking housing, thank you. But the rental properties on the Mid-North Coast, 1%. So it just tells you how hard housing is to get. Social housing, it retracted under the government. I haven't been in the government yet. So, I haven't been able to have the opportunity to absolutely advocate, get into Macquarie Street and talk about what's happening here on the ground in Port Macquarie. We've seen retraction in public housing. Yes, do we need more? We have vulnerable communities here because they moved to the regions. Why? Because back then it was affordable. Now we have one of the most expensive regions on the Mid-North Coast. We need to build more affordable housing. We've seen it. We've seen it in Moorhope and Gore Street. I would have loved to have seen it, but guess what? I wasn't invited. So maybe I need to go and have a look at that one.
Thank you. Housing is a hallmark of a civilized society. You know, when you look at Maslow's triangle, people need to have that for security. The fact that there's 16, I think you said, houses there that are empty, there's one answer why they're empty. It's because of red tape and bureaucracy. Because people push things along. I'm sick of it. That's the reason why I'm running, okay? I know I'm not naive. I'm not unrealistic. I know it's very unlikely that I'll get in, but I hope that maybe one of the people who does get in will take this to heart. We need to cut the red tape. It needs to happen. We don't need to, you can get a affordable 2-bedroom, self-contained granny flat for $30,000. You could buy one of them tomorrow. There should be enough in the budget. We should be able to put up 30, 40 of those. There's heaps of land around. The reason it doesn't happen, public liability. This, that. People are so afraid of being sued and litigation, all of that. And it's hurting people. People are sleeping in their cars because of this fear and this red tape. So honestly, what I would do if I did, by an act of God, become the elected representative, is I would just go in there and I would sign off on stuff because it needs to happen.
Thank you. I think this is one of the great shames of the current Liberal National Party government, that they have sold off $3 billion worth of public housing, which contributed to this crisis. Labor will cut the red tape. I found out today some great news that the Minns government, should they come in, will create a new agency called Homes New South Wales that will be a single one-stop social and affordable housing agency. Already we had plans, and bear in mind what I said before, when in opposition we have to do our costings to be able to stand publicly and say these things. We have a policy that we will build as many affordable rentals as we possibly can. Labor will legislate that over 30% of all new developments on surplus government land will be made available for public housing stock. So this is an issue that's very important to us, and we have clear plans to make sure that we can turn it around.
Question 5. Good evening. My name's Reg Miller, Port Macquarie resident. Yep, and getting there. Better. And I'll put my question. Very simple question, very straightforward. I appreciate a straight answer. What are your plans to retain nurses at Port Macquarie Base Hospital, as the current incentive scheme is flawed and not working? Nurses cross the border for better pay conditions. Your plans, please.
Yeah, thanks very, very much. I understand the problem that nurses have, and that they can get heaps better. They're going to Victoria and Queensland on bulk. We've already introduced a bill to Parliament. We've already introduced it to establish correct nurse-to-patient ratios, okay? The Liberal National Party have built new hospitals without funding the staff. We need to fund the staff. We must stop the pay caps for all New South Wales state employees, police, nurses and teachers. We'll support health workers choosing to live in the regions. We'll fix the broken locum system. We'll expand assistance for patients who need to travel and address the barriers to junior doctors choosing to become GPs. We'll take some of the weight off the nurses. We're meeting with them. We're talking with them. Amanda Conn, our representative for health, is the best educated health spokesperson that we have in this state. We'll look forward to seeing her in the upper house. Thank you.
Okay, the first thing I'll do, you might not like this, would be to remove all mandates for nurses and midwives. Okay? There are midwives, there are nurses, there are health professionals out there who cannot work because they chose not to get a specific medical procedure for whatever reason. And why should we even know why the reason is? That is their personal body. That is their choice. Secondly, Health is super important. We need to take the pressure off our hospital and medical systems. One of the ways we can do this is promoting a healthy lifestyle. What you eat, what you drink, the lifestyle choices you make, exercise. These things are all important. When you go to the doctor, do they ask you what you're eating, what your nutrition is like? Or do they just ask you what pills you're on? We have got the allopathic system in Australia and the world is insane. I've worked at doctors, I know many nurses and midwives. You get onto one pill, long-term chronic condition, and then that causes other problems. Then you have to get on a pill for that. And that causes insomnia, so you have to take a sleeping pill. And the sleeping pill gives you that, you have to take another one. It's never ending, and it's designed that way. So number one, I would also be looking at education for people so they can improve their health.
Yeah, good on you, Sylvia. You know, I can't stand up as a candidate for the National Party and promise nurse-to-patient ratios. I cannot do that because I'm one person, and that is a party decision in there. But what I can say is that the National Party, in the history, installed the very first regional health minister, and that's a start. That's a start. I know, Mark.
She's useless.
I know, Mark. I know you're not happy with our health minister.
Still waiting for a letter from August.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know you're not happy, but I'm coming to you as the candidate.
She's hopeless.
Let's
Sorry.
park her.
I've got
Let's
personal stuff with her.
park the health minister. The thing is, we do have a health minister. I know he's riled, and you're right to be so.
You know why?
Our frontline healthcare workers need pay rises. They need to be paid for the skills that they have because they are our frontline workers. And I have to actually agree with you, Sylvia. We've just met. The mandate. Remove the mandate for the vaccines. Remove the mandate for the vaccines.
Labor wants to immediately work towards safe staffing levels and move as quickly as possible to ratios. But at the moment, that's not quite possible because of funding restrictions. We also want to work with the nurses and midwives unions to ensure that they have the fair pay and working conditions, that the terrible stress and pressure that they're under now because of chronic underfunding in public hospitals and no support for recruiting new staff. That has to stop, and we'll be doing what we can to support them in those areas. With a clear plan to recruit more nurses.
Question 6. I'll bring it to you. You can stand here and ask it if you like.
Yes, I just want to ask each candidate what their position would be on the partnership between a state government and private corporations and agencies providing government services.
Oh, it's a tricky one. I have to go first. Gosh. Okay, private enterprise, I think, can do a lot of stuff that government cannot do, and vice versa. However, I do believe that the whole reason to have a state government is to provide these services. And if they are contracting out, I think that's when things can get very expensive. They can get very drawn out in time-wise, and things don't happen in a timely manner when things get outsourced. As well as having state government-funded services does ensure that they're accountable, whereas in a private enterprise, they're a lot less accountable. I just want to point out one thing as well. Whenever a politician says that they're going to put together an agency or a commission, that does not equal less red tape or less bureaucracy. Because back in 2018, there was actually a federal commission on housing put together, and they were given, I think, $10 million or something to figure out how to solve the housing crisis that was imminent then, 2018, now it's 2023, and all they have produced is a few annual reports and a lot of people's salaries.
The private sector and government actually, if they were able to work really well hand in hand and save our taxpayers a lot of money. They save our taxpayers a lot of money because government agencies And I can speak from experience because I'm at the lower tier of a government agency. I see a lot of waste in agencies, exactly right, Sylvia, creating reports. The administration cost to run those agencies as opposed to delivering on the ground is astronomical. I've seen it firsthand. What could we be delivering if we weren't paying all of that money in these agency fees? But I don't want to get the dustboard out and rub off government agencies. I'm talking about in collaboration. Private agencies, government agencies, collaboration between the two, because both are held accountable to each other when they're in partnership. I believe in that. I've seen it work. That's my view. You ask me.
Well, thanks, Meta. I can speak from experience too. We've seen the privatise the profit and socialise the cost. I can speak from the experience of the electricity industry, which I worked in for 30 years in New South Wales. Okay? Energy Australia, sold. Sold to who? Sold to Singapore and China. When you pay your electricity bill to Energy Australia, your money goes straight out of the country. The only one they didn't sell was Essential Energy, which is 95% of the area. It's in Port Macquarie. They didn't sell it because you couldn't give it away. So we're still subsidising Essential Energy. So we're not supporting privatising the profit and socialising the cost. Private-public partnerships, look at Port Macquarie Hospital. That was a private-public partnership that failed. Okay? Look at roads in New South Wales. Look at tolls in New South Wales. Look at what it's costing people from Western Sydney to get into the city now. That was a private-public partnership that we're going to try and draw back. The Greens have a policy to have an energy authority to bring power prices down, to retract some of the privatised profit. Thank you.
Yes, good
clarify,
statement.
was that, sorry, can I just clarify, was that
Sure.
a question? No, I need to clarify, was that a question about power? Or was that, because I thought it was across the board?
Public agencies.
Thank you.
Sold on private government.
Thank you, I just wanted to clarify. Sorry, Pete.
That's all right. I did like that statement. Look at tolls in Sydney. Wasn't it just a couple of weeks ago the Transport Minister sold off one of the toll roads or tunnels in Sydney to a company that he had shares in? The moment we have privatisation of government responsibilities and government departments that are supposed to be doing their job, we're opening up an area that's a very slippery slope. You talk to people who are working in health, forestry, workers' compensation, NDIS, welfare, who have to deal with private companies to get the service. The paperwork, the stonewalling, the costs is astronomical. It sounds good. Let's privatise, save money, but the record is not good. Labor is against it. We'll do whatever we can to stop this privatisation. It would be wonderful if we could get out of some of the contracts that we have in these areas that I've already mentioned immediately, so that we can have an honest government doing what it's supposed to do.
Question 7.
A recent scientific study has demonstrated that native forest logging in New South Wales produces CO2 emissions equivalent to those from 840,000 internal combustion vehicles. Do you agree that the New South Wales Government 2050 net zero emissions goal would be impossible if native forest logging continues with, 840,000 internal combustion vehicles happening with all that logging and chipping? If elected, if native forest logging continues and if elected, would you transition New South Wales to sourcing its hardware products from sustainably managed plantations?
Drucy, thanks for the question. Yes, the Greens support this full stopping of native forestry logging and the introduction of forestry plantations, particularly with Australian hardwoods. The forestry industry lost $9 billion to Forestry Corporation last year. We believe that the expertise within forestry, if it was used in plantation forestry, could expand the industry. We have a transition for forestry workers to expand the industry, particularly high-value hardwoods. Hardwood log sizes have reduced in the years. Only 3% of forestry logs are used for hardwood timber. That means that 97% is left in the forest or left as wood chips and sent out of the country. We've got a plan to rejuvenate the forestry industry, to create a transition for workers and to get the carbon abatement from native forests credited to our carbon offsets. Thank you.
Currently, the New South Wales Forestry Corporation, which incidentally is a partnership between private enterprise and government, is able to take out as much as they like because once the Liberal National Party government came into power in New South Wales, they did away with the New South Wales Threatened Species Conservation Act, opening up a way for indiscriminate logging, and that has to stop. So yes, my answer would be that I would very definitely, if we would want to help forestry plantations.
This is a really big conversation to have in just 1 minute. I have to say, wood is good. Don't demonise timber because our country needs it, and it creates a $2.4 billion industry. It creates jobs and it creates economy for New South Wales. There are between Newcastle and Tweed Head 775 timber mills. We shut all of those down. We stopped logging. We stopped harvesting. Where does the taxes come from to run our great state? The industry employs over 22,000 people right across this state. Where are they going to go? Where is that skill going to go? And can I just say, in our region, $2.1 million was just recently donated to the koala conservation area in Kawarra State Forest in Gulabugaba, where we are seeing the Koala Conservation Australia set up to breed koalas out of conservation. So trees capturing carbon, 10 kilos of carbon is captured every year in a growing tree. It's only a minute. I wish I had a lot more time. But what I want to say, if I could just finish, is I want to say the Nationals have committed to reducing emissions and net zero by 2050. Why would I not think you'd want to hear that?
Wood is good, but hemp is better. So one of our policies is hemp is one of the fastest growing crops. It grows very densely. You can get a lot out of per every acre. It heals the soil. It heals the air. So wood is good, but hemp is better. When I hear the word transition, the only one transition I want to see is timber logging into hemp manufacturing, hempcrete, hemp fibre. It's literally endless, isn't it? So that's what I would like to see. We don't have to fire people. We can transition them into other avenues. It's 2023. We can do this. 2050 net zero. I don't think that is going to be achievable, and I think anyone who says that that is going to happen is just totally lying to you. So that's what I think about that. And oh yeah, 2.1 million given to the koalas. Does anyone know how much money koala tourism brings in to Australia? $3 billion. Now, the trees that koalas live in, you know, they need those native forests to live in. So we can't just cut those down and expect them to go, you know, live up a telegraph pole.
Question 8. Who had question 8?
Oh, I got a microphone. Thank you very much, Greg. Mel Grave Thompson, I've just got a short question. I wanted to ask each candidate whether their party accepts donations
from the gambling industry and how that impacts on their views on poker machines.
Okay, so we're in a club and there's just poker machines right out there. So maybe if we're that precious, we shouldn't have held it here tonight. Poker machines, clubs, they give back to the community. They build sporting fields, they build playgrounds, and that is part of their agreement. Does the National Party accept donations? I've been a member since towards the end of last year, and I would assume very much so they do. But the thing is, does that demonise poker machines? Does that demonise clubs? And there is a policy coming out to protect our vulnerable gamblers in as far as the cashless cards are concerned. So I come from a pub background, and I come from an area where these machines were starting to be introduced as a way of supplementing income into the pubs after the random breath testing started to come in. So look, I mean, when people are in business, they're entitled to earn a living. Where their political donations go is a matter for them. Do I demonise gambling and poker machines? No, I don't, because the majority of Australians who use them use them for entertainment and within their means.
Again, I'll state I'm proud to be a member of a party that doesn't take donations from fossil fuel companies, large corporations, or the gambling industry. Gambling causes harm. New South Wales has got 83% of poker machines in Australia. We're second to Las Vegas in the amount of slot machines we have. I don't know if you've recently seen the fact that people went into clubs in Sydney 2 weeks ago and laundered $15,000 with shirts on saying, "I'm here to launder money. I can go to any club, put $5,000 through a poker machine, take the money out, and it's washed." That money could be from illicit drugs, could be from prostitution. I can clean it in half an hour in any club in New South Wales. We have to change this. It's causing harm to our community. There's a better way to fund clubs than poker machines. Thank you.
The Australian Labor Party is a very old political party, and I'm only a very new member, and I really don't know if we do. I doubt it. But I'm very happy to, as I say, take that question on notice, make some inquiries and get back to you. However, I can tell you that our New South Wales policy for this election is that we will ban political donations from clubs. We're also going to ban gaming advertising. We're going to limit the amount of poker machines in clubs and the amount that you can put in and gamble at a particular time.
Okay, so what I think the real question is not do we accept donations from poker things, is whether that donation comes with conditions, okay? We don't get any donations. So if some poker machine owner wants to say, here's 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, thank you very much. We're not going to be told how to spend that money. We're going to use it to forward our policies, which are the most common sense out of everyone here, no offense. For the people, for the people, by the people. Now, I did just want to touch on one thing on the last questions as well. So these floors here, they might be hardwood floors. And Peter made a really good point. Oh, but how do you get your floors from, you don't have wood? Well, you can actually make them from milk bottles. My sister's patio is made from a milk bottle planks. I'm sorry, I didn't do it.
Question 9.
Thank you. My name's Frances. I'm born and bred in the area. My family settled here in convict days. And during climate change is the biggest issue I think that we have in the area. And I was on the front line during the floods. Me and my family and friends lost homes in areas that weren't designated flood areas, and they some of them are still homeless. So my question is, what are the plans for each candidate? What's your strategies to actually mitigate the impacts of climate change, the floods and the bushfires?
Good question. My family goes back to convict days too. I'm not sure which side we were on. Anyway, we have a plan to create a clean energy agency. We want to work with what the federal government has in mind and plan for the nation, and also that we want to work with emerging industries, mining for rare earth minerals, and all industrial and commercial interests that are moving ahead into the new industries and opportunities that are coming regarding renewables. Again, this is another crucial area where federal, state, and council have to work together to ensure that they're all moving in the right direction. This is something that I think is an opportunity for our quality of life as well as commercial. So our plan is to work towards a very sustainable and good, clean outcome.
I don't have the answers for climate change because climate change is such a broad brush. What does that actually mean? And I was on the front line too of the floods, and my house was flooded twice, and I don't live in floodplain. And while I was cleaning out other people's houses with my husband up the back and all our team, that we stopped our business and we came down and we pulled the carpets out and everything. No, that's a fact. That is an actual fact. I was on the front line and I actually saw it firsthand because I think you need a lived experience to really understand it. And thank you. And the thing is, my heart goes out because, you know, we have seen some really monumental natural disasters happening. And the discussion about climate change, what does that actually mean? Reducing emissions, reducing CO2, renewables. We haven't got a plan in this country yet, but to deliver those renewables, we haven't got the infrastructure of what is mitigation. All I can say is that the New South Wales Nationals, their plan is to lower the emissions by 2050 and not impact businesses or put taxes up in doing so. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, thanks, Meta. The first thing about mitigation is to, number one, accept the science. If you don't accept that you're sick, you can't go and get yourself well again. Climate change and associated extreme weather events are increasingly a driver of intensity of bushfires. We've got a bushfire plan for mitigation. We've got a plan for 100% renewables by 2050. Australia is the smartest country in the world. And I challenged you before on the China-India thing. If you do a moral count of carbon emissions per person, we are 6, 7, 8, 9 times more than a person standing in the street in India. We don't have a moral right to say we're a small emitter. We're the 4th biggest exporter of fossil fuels, and unless we wean ourselves off fossil fuels, unless we stop all new coal mine and gas mines, wean ourselves off of the transition, we can, with renewables, power the country. We can be a power for the world. We can increase jobs. We've got the technical solutions. All we need is the political will to implement it. I would declare a climate change emergency that was retracted from our council. Thank you.
I'm extremely reluctant to give the government any sort of emergency powers whatsoever in light of what's happened in the past 3 years. I'm going to deal directly with floods and bushfires. Floods. Good on you for going down there, and for anyone else who went down and helped clean up. Where was the SES? Where was the Army? Isn't that what they're meant to be helping with? The SES, I know volunteers who couldn't help out because they were not jabbed. Okay, so there's people at home who could have helped out, who were told they weren't allowed to volunteer without being jabbed. That is the truth. That is a fact. So if they had been able to help then, I think that the cleanup would have been much quicker and faster because they've got all the infrastructure needed. They've got the boats that they can go and move people and the machinery. Bushfires, the same thing with the firefighters. A lot of them were held down and not able to work because they decided not to get jabbed. They left their job. I am. It's floods and bushfires. Mitigation. Let people who are trained to help with floods and bushfires work regardless of their medical procedure status. That's my opinion.
Question 10.
Hello, my name's Anna Johnson. Port Macquarie is known as the koala town across the world, really, and they're now an endangered species. Can you tell us what policies your party have to protect and enhance koala habitat in Port Macquarie, New South Wales.
Well, first, I'd say, it's already been covered before, to stop cutting down any of the forests where the koalas are. I've heard about, oh my gosh, is it called Koalaville, where they're set up the example of how humans and koalas can live together and everyone's happy, and it seems to be coming along very well. So I think that we should look at that a bit closer. We have to protect their habitat. That's the thing with koalas. That's it, really. All we have to do is protect their habitat, and they will go on their little happy lives, eating the gum leaves, and we just have to stay out of their way and not crush them with machinery or run them over or cut down their homes.
The minute you say koala, it invokes an emotion in us that is hard to control. The thing with koalas is we have breeding programs. I was at Billabong Zoo today, one of our most prolific koala breeders in our region. The New South Wales government also bought hectares of land for koala conservation. We have the very first koala hospital in the world here in Port Macquarie. And we are surrounded by national parks, nature reserves and state forests. We are more populated by vegetation on this mid-north coast. When we think of koalas, we think about the urban ones in our backyards that are crossing the road, and we worry about them constantly. We don't know the population in the depths of our region, and this region in Port Macquarie Hastings is an extremely large region. We saw the bushfires and we thought they were all burnt to a crisp. Koalas have survived the length of time, but we must mitigate, talking about mitigation with bushfires, we must mitigate our vegetation so they can get out of harm's way.
Thanks, Leslie. Sorry. Do you understand what endangered means? The koalas are the canary in the coal mine. We have a biodiversity crisis in Australia. We must stop logging of native forests. We have the Great Koala National Park. It was raised, it was an invention of the Greens. Kate Fairman works endlessly to get this happening. Labor supported. Can I hear the Liberal National Party say they're going to support the Great Koala National Park? Without habitat, koalas will be extinct in the wild by 2050. That's a scientific fact. That's why they're endangered. Thank you.
It's only common sense that we should look after what is arguably one of our national, international symbols. Port Macquarie is the koala capital of Australia, arguably the world. Not only should we look after it because it is so precious to us, it's also an opportunity. We can become known as the Koala Coast. We can have koala tourism here. It's true that we don't know the exact numbers, but accordingly, I've heard that there's about 320 to 350 that we do know of that are tagged in this area, and they are moving close towards extinction. So I don't want that. I don't think it's an emotional issue per se. I think it's a common sense one. Labor fully supports the Great National Koala Park. That will preserve our native flora and fauna. It will create tourism jobs. And I'm very proud to be able to stand here tonight to say that one of our federal senators, Stuart Ayres, came to Port Macquarie this week and gave $400,000 to koala conservation people here on the mid-north coast.
Question 11.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the candidates for standing and doing what you do for our community. My question is a little bit different. I'd like to sort of find out a bit, not just about what you want to do, but a bit more about who you are, each of you as people. So my question is, community development is very important to me. What volunteering have you done in your communities? And this is before perhaps being a public figure. Just in your everyday life, what volunteering have you done in your community? And I probably would leave off things like sporting groups where your child is taking place, other things I'm talking about, outside of a direct benefit to your family, but what sort of volunteering have you done in your respective communities?
I don't have a very long record at all. I've worked with the Port Macquarie surfing community, and I've written a book on history of surfboard riding in Port Macquarie. That's about it, really. Other than that, I'm standing for Parliament because I believe that we are at a time when we need change, when we need to address some of the issues that we've spoken about tonight, that I've spoken about. So here's a chance for me, after living a very busy life, raising children, to be able to stand up and make my contribution to the community. And I'm very happy to do so.
Pre-COVID, I had done volunteering at the Red Cross in the cafe there, Animal Welfare Centre in Cairns, which is just the best. They do actual help. They give out de-sexing certificates to everyone who needs it for free. So they do actual good work. I also volunteered at RSPC. I had to leave there because of their kill policy. It was heartbreaking for me. When COVID started and I was disgusted by the mandates and the segregation, I put most of my volunteering time into running rallies and events. So you might have heard of Stand in the Park. I worked a lot with those guys in the early days, the international level. I have volunteered in the Informed Medical Options Party since 2020 when I first joined the committee, putting countless hours there. I was a committee member for a year, and then I stepped up to be vice president the year before last, so I'm in my second year of doing that. I love doing stuff for free. I'm really not money motivated, which is not awesome, when you have to pay bills. But you know what? I am a Christian, and God does provide for me, and I just do my thing, and it all works out. I know that's probably like, oh, what's that got to do with it? But it does for me. I do what I love to do, and I like to help people.
Thanks. As I mentioned before, I was an inaugural member of 2 FM, which provided access to media for people irrespective of their race, gender, political bias. So it's nice to know that Zoe Daniels started at 2 FM. And some people have had some great career starts and some great community stuff. Energy Forever, I'm now the chairperson of Energy Forever, a community power group that's interested in getting the benefits of renewable energy to people who otherwise couldn't afford it. I was an establishment member of the Port Macquarie Hastings Sustainability Network, and it's great the things that have come out of that, the farm gate tours, the Lost Plot evolved out of the Port Macquarie Hastings Sustainability Network, and I was also a long-term member of the Sustainability Working Group on council. That was a volunteer working group, a council committee that really started the long-term energy strategy, and I can say I was gutted when the council stopped that committee. So, yes. Another one, we talk about sport, but I'm also a lifetime member of the Hastings Valley Motorcycle Club for the development of the club. And I also volunteer for my wife who does land care. So volunteers are important, engaging with community. It's what gives us social value. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to take a minute to rattle off a whole heap of my CV on volunteering. What I'm going to share with you is probably the most prolific volunteering I've ever done is with Lifeline here in Port Macquarie, and it was in suicide prevention, it was with domestic violence, and it was with mental health issues. And I talked about before about it's really hard to stand in someone's shoes unless you've had a lived experience. And I'll share with you, I've had a lived experience in suicide. 2 of my family members have suicided. So to walk in the footsteps of those who are struggling is a really difficult thing to do. And I might come across as a hard ass to this community, but I stand up for what I believe in. And it hurts sometimes to actually walk in your truth and be ridiculed for it. And I understand that as a community leader, and it's okay to be vulnerable. And it was the most rewarding time of my life, sitting on a phone for hours with people who rang in because they had no one else to speak with.
Question 12.
Sorry. Thanks for sharing, Peter. That was very moving. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for coming tonight. It's been a really interesting night to get everyone's perspective. But my name is Jason Partridge. I'm here representing some of the local business community. So we've been struggling, I guess, a lot of businesses have been struggling over the last 3 years, particularly with everything we've been through in this region particularly. Some of the main issues we like to try and address is how you guys would support local business and try and get things thriving again. There's many issues we have had that we've tried to get resolved. We've been screaming out for some help and guidance with. One of them, for instance, is the Town Centre Master Plan for the CBD businesses. We've been asking Council to try and abolish that Master Plan levy, which is actually a 40% load on top of the rates for business owners and landowners in the CBD district. So my question, I guess, is how can you support local business, and would you support the abolishment of the Town Centre Master Plan if you're elected? Thank you.
Well, that does sound like it is a council issue, but one thing that we're very strong on in Full Medical Options Party is to cut through red tape and bureaucracy. We're very interested in helping small business, and we believe that that is one of the ways we can do that. Too many fees, laws, and red tape to go for businesses to go through. We believe if we can get the government out of a lot of that, then you'll be freer to do your business. One thing that we're very, very passionate about is supporting cash. Cash, legal, is a legal tender, and it should not be disappearing. I don't know, in the council, in the Cairns Regional Council, sorry to not bring it here local, but they don't have any cash facilities whatsoever, and I would hate to see that here. I know that's a council issue, but that's something we'll be talking about a lot, is to support cash being used in the community, because you don't have to pay bank fees on it. You don't have to, pay interest and stuff like that when it is not in the bank account. So yeah, we cut through the red tape, and that's how we would support small businesses. And I'm sorry I can't answer about the Town Master Plan.
Jason, right? Yeah. So this was what was the committee that you mentioned? The subcommittee, master plan?
The Town Centre Master Plan, which is a special levy put on all CBD business owners and property owners. We pay 40% more in our rates towards community infrastructure, and that's been going for 20 odd years now. It was first brought in place on a 10-year agreement with a joint venture between business owners and landowners, and that's been dragging on now for 23 years.
Okay.
Compounding every year.
Okay. Well, again, here's an example of where a state member should be working with council, and also important community bodies, tourism, business bodies, Chamber of Commerce, and sit down and work out how best to move forward with these type of issues and get politics out of them. I can also add that Labor has plans to assist small businesses, setting up a New South Wales Business Bureau to cut the red tape as mentioned, and etc., and to help get through government contracts and understand them. But I think also what we can do for small business is sit down and talk with those local bodies that I mentioned and work out ideas on how we can progress our business communities and our tourism for our town, because I think there's room for growth.
Thanks, Jason. I'm a small business owner as well, and I understand the difficulties of small business, particularly during the pandemic. The Town Centre Master Plan, I'm a little bit ambivalent on this because I've had feedback from other business owners in the Town Centre who actually like the Town Centre Master Plan, who actually don't want it disbanded because they believe that the improvements they've got in the town centre for their businesses are well worth the money that's put in. So council gives extra alfresco dining licences, extra cleaning, extra facilities to their business. I don't know what your business is, Jason, so I can't comment on your individual purpose. But yeah, training for TAFE and training for apprentices and cutting fees for apprentices and cutting red tape on payroll tax is a big part of our policies. But on the Town Centre Master Plan, I'll really put it better to the details of that. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, and it is an estate government issue, it's a council issue, and I'm ashamed to say that we're going to continue to slug businesses like yours with exorbitant rates that will impact if you're a business operating out of your own business. It's going to affect you greatly, and things are going to get tougher. We've just seen a 10th consecutive rate rise. And people are going to stop spending because why? They have to. They have to stop spending. They have to decide where that extra $1,000 a month that they had as surplus cash isn't going into one of your businesses. And there's 3 councillors in this room, including myself, in addition to myself. There's 3 of us here. And the community came to us and asked for help. We had the opportunity and we said no. And 2 of us in this room were here to help you, and 2 of them weren't, as well as other councillors. It's a numbers game. I'm sorry, we're stuck with it right now. But as a mayor, I'm looking at how we can minimise the devastation our community is going to see economically because of the cost of living rises that are going on. Sorry, I can't give you another answer to that.
Question 13. Now we're getting up at 8 o'clock. This may have to be our last question unless the candidates want to stay a bit longer.
Well, I think people have been waiting.
Let's do it. That's
You
what we're here for.
have staying a bit longer? Right. Yeah.
Hey guys, how are we? Look, I'm going to save a bit of time because there's a few of us that had questions, so I took their numbers as well. So I'll cover a few of this off. So basically, look, I represent kind of the group that's trying to stop the destruction of the Port Macquarie Breakwall. My history is basically coming from that social welfare background and doing well in my sport, and I opened into that breakwall. So when that breakwall was threatened, what I believe was unnecessary at the time, that's how this all started. So my question is basically what we know and my journey of what we know to what you guys will do about it. That includes basically identifying what we're talking about, which is, I believe, and I think a lot of people share that, is the biggest asset of Port Macquarie. The whole town goes down there every weekend. It's known not only in Port Macquarie but all over the world. The trees, the waves, the memorial rocks, the whole ecosystem that's been there for 139 years. This isn't just something that's like just popped up. It is a big part of Port Macquarie, and I think it's the heart and soul of it. Look, in 2020, we got a $205 million budget that was given to New South Wales and Maritime. That was a huge budget for the stimulus package post-flood. $5 million of that was given to Port Macquarie Breakwall a month later in November 2020. That's when the decision was made without any engineer serving the breakwall, without any design, no community consultation. That was made in November 2020. If anyone needs facts on this, they're all on Sado Breakwall. I've got everything you need to see. In 2021, the first survey was done after the March floods. We all remember that. What happened over on the North Shore, everyone got flooded out. This was in April, March floods. The only hydraulics went in there in April 2021. That survey came back at Port Macquarie South Wall. All right, okay. Basically, I'll get to the end of the story. This breakwall does not need to be destroyed. We spent $8,000 getting the best engineer in Australia to survey this breakwall. He's done a report that's online for everyone. He's very worried about adverse effects. So my question is to you guys. Firstly, have you seen the report? If you haven't seen the report, it's available. And what would you do to stop the Port Macquarie Breakwall from unnecessarily being destroyed and it goes with it when there could be other options?
Yes, I have seen the independent report. What would I do? Well, I'll be doing what we in Labor have been doing right in the beginning. We have said that we want to follow the science of the reports. We want to follow exactly what we can find out that verifies and justifies what is being proposed or what needs to be done. Now, that has not been easy because, unfortunately, this has been a murky process to find out exactly what has been said, who has attended certain meetings. Labor last year put forward some questions on notice in the New South Wales Parliament regarding who was involved and why certain plans have been put forward, and we received very nebulous answers. We put forward under Freedom of Information, what they call in New South Wales a GIPA, government information, public access to information about what was been going on in meetings in New South Wales, Port Macquarie and Sydney, and we received zero reply from the National Liberal Party government. So it's been very hard for us to find out what has been going on, who has been doing what, and why this has become a messy political football, which it should not have become. Here is an example again where state and council should be transparent and work together for the good of the community. And we will follow the science. If Labor wins, and I should be fortunate enough to win, we'll be looking at it very closely and doing everything to do to preserve its iconic nature.
Labor has done nothing. The National Party turned up into town. I brought the Deputy Premier into town, and he saw firsthand the lived experience of this community and how much they love this breakwall. The Minister for Transport made a public statement in the media and said that the National Party will pull the handbrake on this project. Please don't be mistaken. You know, there are a lot of issues in our community. There are a lot of really important issues. But let's remember, the political is personal, and people will remember this. When they go to the polls, there is going to be a referendum on this breakwall, and people will take that into the polls with them when they make the decision on everything else that they have to weigh up. I've got the floor. They will make the decision when they turn up. This is an iconic breakwall. The community extraordinarily have come out. I've stood shoulder to shoulder with this community, shoulder to shoulder with them, and I've followed this the whole way through. Not because it's popular, but because it's right. It's absolutely right, and the reconstruction of this is unnecessary. There is an independent report by a man who has more experience than anybody in Australia on breakwaters, Angus Gordon, and I will put my faith in what he has to say. We have a breakwall in North Haven that has a pool fence along the walkway to keep people safe and not falling into the river. Yet we have a $5 million liberal pledge to reconstruct a breakwall that doesn't need it. You figure it out, everyone.
I'm going to pick up on a word that Keith used. He said political football. Well, I don't play football, okay? So what I do is I'll get that football and I'll walk off the field with it and put it down, because we don't need that. The report has been paid for. It's a good report by all standards. Is anyone here going to argue with that? It says it can be repaired. We can repair it for a lot less than $5 million, so I'm to understand. So what is this $5 million for? Where's that going? To the people who are writing the other reports. Science can be bought and paid for. And if you don't think it can, you're naive. Okay? You can get a report or statistics and say whatever you want it to say. The reality is it doesn't need to be reconstructed. It can be repaired, so let's just do it. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, thanks very much. And thanks, Damien. I can see how passionate you are about this and how you revved up the community. I think destruction is an emotive word. No one's talking about destructing the breakwall. The Liberal National Party coalition is offering us money to upgrade the breakwall. I love the breakwall. I sail every weekend past the breakwall. This is Port Macquarie. It's a port. Without a good functional breakwall, let's take the port out of Port Macquarie. I've just sailed up and down the coast from New South Wales, from Port Macquarie to Tasmania, and looked at pretty much every breakwall on the coast between here and Victoria. I've looked at the upgrade they've done on the Camden Haven breakwall, and it's been money well spent. Definitely, I'd like to see the path widened. The trees, the plan had to take out some trees to necessarily widen the path and to put in more trees than they removed and proper native species. So destruction is a bit emotive. I really see the concern about the breakwall, but let's put the energy into health, education, housing, cost of living, biodiversity, climate change, and put things in order of priority. When it's all said and done for our community, I think the breakwall comes 8th or 9th. There was 1,000 people at a school strike for climate change. I didn't see you standing up with them. So how many people really think that this is the most important most important thing in Port Macquarie. I think there's been a bit of political grandstanding done. I'll call it out as it is. Thank you.
Question 14. How about I bring it up to you?
Good day, Lee Mansfield, Port Macquarie. I just want to ask you something about social housing. For over 20 years, the policy for all governments is to house criminals out of jail in the housing before decent people. The amount of people we've had come into this town in the last 3 or 4 years are the worst criminals you will ever want. And that's the policy. You could be a mum, 2 kids, out on the street, 10-year waiting list. We've got university students sleeping in cars at the moment. Yet if I'm the lowest criminal out, pedophile, rapist, murderer, I'll get a place given to me by the state government and they'll put everything in that flat for me. And if I smash it, they'll redo it again. What's your policy? What's your view on putting the criminals second and putting good people first?
Peter.
That's a justice system question. Obviously, as a candidate, I can't make comment on any of that. And I see how passionate you are, and rightfully so, because the majority of our community are good people. People come out of jail after serving some time doing some heinous crimes. Do I want them living next door to my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren? No. But I don't have the answers for that. That is such a complex question that when you're given a minute as a candidate to answer, I'm just not prepared to go into that sort of depth. So what would I do if I'm elected, though? I'd be happy to have some deeper conversations. I'd like to get some more detail on that sort of thing and have those discussions with ministers who actually cover those sorts of portfolios. So I'm just going to park that in that space. Thanks.
Yeah, there's an absolute shortage of public housing, whether you're a single mum or if you're on the 10-year waiting list. I'm not sure that criminals get priority, so I'm not educated to answer on that. Currently, I'm working as part of Energy Forever on the young people's space, YPS in Kempsey, Port Macquarie and Warhope, and I know the difficulties that young people under 25 have, especially challenged people with mental health problems, people with drug problems, have in getting housing at all. So I really don't know about people out of jail getting priority. I'd really like to get some more information on. I really cannot answer that question. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very hard question. I'm completely disillusioned with the justice system myself. I find they just do a lot of harm. But what I would say is a lot of people that come out of the jail are heinous criminals. That's true, but a lot of them are people who've just made a mistake as well. So what I would propose, like cannabis, if you've got a little bit of bud on you, you can end up in jail, and then you become a worse criminal because of the people you meet in there. We would like to see cannabis decriminalised, actually. So that if you still pay a fine, it's more like a parking ticket. But anyway, back to your question, sorry about that. Rehabilitation, I think, is crucial. The prison system is inhumane. It really is. I do think criminals should be punished, absolutely 100%. And when they come out of jail, there needs to be some sort of transition period, there's that word again, transition period, before they are able to have the same rights and privileges as people who haven't, broken law and done badly. And I do not think that they should be put above young mothers, families who have not done anything wrong. I think they should take the priority, and it's really concerning that they don't. Thank you.
This is one of those questions that highlight our housing crisis, which we've talked about before. I don't know if this is how it is. All right. Well, I'm prepared to take your word for it. Labor hasn't been in government for over a decade, so I just don't know. But I'm really happy to follow this up for you. If you want to come and see me afterwards, I can tell you who I can approach in terms of shadow ministers for justice, etc. Put forward your questions to them, and then have further correspondence with you and give you an answer.
Question 15. We'll have to make this the last question of the evening. Those of you who are still waiting to ask questions, where's question 15? Okay. Well, then we'll end it here. You got 16. No, we've got number 16 waiting. Okay. If you come on down, we'll take that as the last question.
I just wanted to ask.
Well, let me bring the microphone to you then. Those of you who are still waiting to ask questions, come and see me after the forum and we'll get them on next week's forum.
Hi, I was going to ask a question about Lake Cat. I'm not going to after listening to everyone talk tonight. I just wanted to ask you to think about, not even answer the question, think about what is more important, the koalas, the Great Koala Park, or whatever it is that we've talked about, or housing. What is more important to the whole of our community, whether it be Port Macquarie, New South Wales, Australia? What is more important? There's not, I don't even want an answer. I just wanted to say, you've got to work out where your policies sit and who is on the top of the tree. And yes, it's the koala on the top of the tree, but you need to, because I've heard all of you talk about the difference between them and there's no answer. You know, like everyone wants social housing fixed, everyone wants the koalas fixed. You can't have everything fixed. That is my question and answer. Thank you. I don't want to answer.
Well, I'll give you the opportunity if you want to say what your priorities are. Just make it nice and quick and then we'll go on to wrap up.
I've definitely been called an idealist before and optimistic, but because I do believe that there are win-win solutions, and it might not be the apparent solutions. I'm a problem solver, so I think that humans having housing, to answer your question quite straightforwardly, humans being in houses is more important. Okay, I will say that, but I think we can have humans in houses while not decimating the koala population. I think that is possible, and that's what I'll work towards making happen. You know, whether I'm naive, you can think I am, but that's what I'll work towards, and I think it's better to shoot for the stars and reach the moon than just shoot for the moon and not even get off the ground.
Yeah, well said, Sylvia. You make a bit of sense. I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. We have mothers, children. We have vulnerable people living in cars, living in tents, or just living in arcades down at Laurelton. You know, it is about balance. I agree with you. It's about balance. There are governments, and this particular government is trying to ensure that the koala is not being made extinct through policy, through planning, but also finding a balance. So I would say houses for people first, but let's find the balance in saving an iconic species like the koala.
Thanks. I don't think how we could say that koalas and housing for people are mutually exclusive. We can have a win-win where we improve housing for people and improve housing for koalas. You know, we've got to tie all these human needs together and look for sustainable development goals. We can have a win-win. You know, housing and koalas are not mutually exclusive. We can have both. We're smart. We've got the science. We can work on it. Like I said before, koalas are the canary in the coal mine. We've got a biodiversity crisis. Let's act on climate change and make things better for all of us. Thank you.
Koalas are just not koalas in Port Macquarie. They're also a representation of how we manage the growth and development of our town. And that has to be done sustainably, that it doesn't destroy our quality of life, that it doesn't ruin our natural environment and what we treasure about our town and our region. We've spoken tonight, I've spoken tonight about Labor's policies, housing, education, health, and managing the local issues. I don't think any of them need to be prioritised over the other. They're fully costed. Our policies are all out there to be seen, and there is no reason why all 4 of them cannot be given equal treatment and addressed properly.
Thank you. So, just move on to the closing remarks now. So just give each candidate 2 minutes just to make some comments just to close the evening. So So we'll just go in the reverse order than when we started. So Keith, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm just summing up basically what I just said then. What is important for Labor is the big social issues of housing, education, health, government services, less privatisation, so that is good for the state economy, and also is worked out here in Port Macquarie in a way that we benefit. And that's one of the things that Labor is clearly stating. I've also said it's important that a local member has transparency and works as hard as they can to have a good, clear working relationship with all levels of government and all local bodies interested in business, tourism, sporting and quality of life in this town. It's a unique opportunity, I think, for us. Labor has never held this seat. It's looking good that we could win the government. If I was fortunate enough to win the seat, we would be in a very good position to implement those policies that I've spoken about briefly tonight here in Port Macquarie and our southern regions, so that we can move forward with the best possible outcomes. Thank you.
Truth, transparency, and accountability is not just a hashtag for me, and I would like to address you, Fran, because earlier you asked about floods, and I spoke a bit too quickly. I didn't think enough. Mitigation. I didn't talk about mitigation. Fire breaks. Indigenous people have been on this land for tens and thousands of years, maybe even longer than maybe 100,000 years. They have got knowledge on how to work with fires that come through, and I think that we should be talking more with Indigenous people in the area about that. Building in floodplains is another way to mitigate things like that. And now, I might get a few boos for this, but back in June 2016, the ABC actually wrote the question, why did Hydro Tasmania authorise cloud seeding on the Sunday morning before the dam? So if you don't want to believe ABC Australia, that's fine. I know I'm suspicious of them as well. But the fact is they asked that question. So cloud seeding does happen, and it does affect the rain. Cloud seeding, it's in the name. So I would be wanting to have a look at that when we're talking about mitigation. All our policies are very sensible and equitable. www.imoparty.com/policies. I've got some brochures here if anyone's interested. I'm not here to pretend that I know everything or I can do everything. What I can do is I can listen to people and I can take in a lot of information and I can come up with solutions and put them to people and then get feedback and work on something to make it better and better and better. I think the stakeholders in the community, every one of you here, you're here because you want to get to know us better and decide where your vote goes. And I really appreciate that, because I think this apathy that's going through our country where people like hate voting and, oh, they're proud. Oh, I didn't vote. I'm so proud of that. Oh, I've never voted. That's really sad to me, because we're a democracy, and we're only a democracy if people vote. And you don't change anything by not voting. And I talk to a lot of young people. I'm 43 myself, believe it or not. But I talk to a lot of young people, and they don't want to vote. They don't care. And the apathy just absolutely kills me. I would like to see, I don't know if everyone knows, this was optional preferential in New South Wales. So you don't have to vote for one person. Please vote for me, Sylvia McGorridge. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. I'd like to thank the HRA. I'd like to thank all the committees for coming along here tonight. I'd like to thank the candidates for having a big go. It's the biggest theatre sports event in Port Macquarie. The Greens. We talked tonight about health, we've talked about education, we've talked about housing and the cost of living, we've talked about the biodiversity crisis, we've talked about climate change, which is my most important topic. The Greens we've got the runs on the board, we've got the policies that are based on science, they're there on the website. They make the other parties' websites pale into insignificance, okay? We've had the Liberal National Party here for 10 years, the coalition that's fighting here tonight. We've had them here for 10 years and we've got a crisis on our hands. A vote for the Greens is a vote for these policies that we've had for decades. The policies on climate change, carbon abatement, that the other parties are just taking on, we've had for decades. We're progressive, we're the leaders in progressive policies. We're there. A vote for the Greens is a vote for the future for our community. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and thank you for hosting this tonight, and thank you all for coming out. It's Tuesday night, the week is long. I would just like to say that I'm not here about policies. Policies are made for people like you. Policies are changed for people like you. Governments change and they change their policies, and their people in government change too. But you're the community through and through, continuously, and any candidate who is elected into the House of the Parliament needs to remember who they're supporting. They're supporting you first. They're taking your concerns first and delivering on your expectations first. So for me, whilst I've joined the National Party, I remain a servant of this community and will do so if I'm elected under the banner of the National Party and the strong policies that they present into the new government. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the candidates, and I'd just like to thank you all for attending today, and I'd just like to invite just a quick round of applause for the candidates today. Thank you very much for calling my day.